Hello, fellas. Welcome back to the Fallacious Truth. Today I've got something very similar to my previous episode as far as politics goes. This is another one of those that really can't be reviewed without bringing politics into the mix. I found a TikTok that went around that shows a woman sarcastically going through what she believes are inequities and things that she is entitled to as far as being a woman goes. And this all has to do with that National Women's Day. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up here and review it, and we'll go ahead and analyze it, break it down, and see what is true and what clearly isn't true. All right, thank you, and let's take a listen here.
A round of applause for our female employees. We're announcing 100% equal pay for all of our female employees.
Oh, wow.
Oh, look, happy International Women's Day for my gynecologist.
Oh, look, I just got my free tampons from the government. Makes sense considering about half the population bleeds freely 12 weeks of the year. Members of Congress are talking about how much they love their daughters again, because how else would men sympathize with women unless they have daughters? Oh, Congress reauthorized the Violence Against Women Act. It's almost as if they think violence against women is bad. How modern. Oh, wow, another inspirational video about how hard it is to be a working mom. Wow, we finally joined most of the industrialized world offering universal paid leave to new parents.
All right, the first part of this, we hear a male employee in the background saying, "Let's give a round of applause for all of our female employees," and you hear a slow, sarcastic clap.
We get a round of applause for our female employees.
That segment ends right there with her coming back into frame, sarcastically clapping along with it. Originally, I was just gonna skip past this first part, but after thinking about it, I really don't need to. I mean, the first part of this already shows the utter ridiculousness of not only this line of thinking or this TikTok, but it shows the utter ridiculousness of the whole Woman's Day concept. I mean, instead of hearing lists of accomplishments of all these great females in history, like maybe you would think they would want to hear, all you hear is a sarcastic clap because there's nothing that they can give. As a whole, there's nothing really to be, this is going to sound terrible to some people, but it's true. There's nothing really to be brought to light. There's nothing really to be acknowledged. There's nothing really to be brought into the spotlight as far as Women's Day is concerned. So you just get a sarcastic clap from not only the fella whose voice is doing this, but her as well. I mean, if she really wanted to, she could even try to make this somewhat educational. She could have at least tried to go throughout history to the phrase, Google is your friend. I mean, come on here. She could have at least tried to find the modern equivalent of quote-unquote strong women who have contributed to society throughout history. But she didn't even bother to do that. She couldn't do it because there really isn't much to go on. So instead, like I said, she gives the sarcastic clap to it. She knows it doesn't exist, and thus, there's not a whole lot to look up. And to take this a step further, instead of trying to find accomplishments, she then goes on to say, well, you know what? Instead of acknowledging women, how about if you give me this because I am entitled to this for being a woman? Yeah, that's what's coming up here.
Announcing 100% equal pay for all of our female employees.
Oh, wow. Oh.
So the first thing she is clapping for Women's Day as to what she would like to see is, I know yous all are gonna shake your head at this. It has been debunked time and time again, and I'm sure you've heard this ad nauseum, and quite frankly, you're probably sick and tired of hearing about it. But she claps at the male voice saying, "I'm announcing 100% of equal pay for women on Women's Day." All right, first and foremost, I promise you, I'm not going to go into this all over again because it's been discussed by many people, and including myself. There is zero data, none whatsoever, that shows that men are paid more than women. In fact, when U.S. companies in particular tried to suggest this and then tried to prove it, the converse was proven. They actually proved that women took home more money in pay than men did. It has been illegal for decades for companies to pay differently for the same work, the same time work, the same difficulty of work, the same skill level of work. It has been illegal for decades for companies to pay one gender more than another for the identical work. There are a myriad of reasons why on the surface it may appear that men take home more than women, but it's factually incorrect. Just the idea that men take home more pay for the identical work as women, it's a complete myth, and here's why. Well, here's just some of the reasons why. Men are far more likely to choose careers that are far more dangerous, so naturally they're going to pay more. Men by far are more likely to work in a higher paying field. Just the occupation alone, men are more likely to work in a higher paying field than women by choice. Men are also more often likely to take work that is uncomfortable, that's isolated, that's in undesirable locations. Men work far more hours than women do. And what comes along with it? Men take jobs that require work in the evenings because men know that they have to take care. They know that they have to provide. It is innate. It is built in us. So therefore, we get paid more for that, and we should get paid more for that. Now, even within the same career category of men and women, men are always going to pursue the higher stress and higher paid areas of the specialization for that particular career. Women, by their nature, are going to choose the path of least resistance. Men do not do that. And here's the kicker. Even if you take what I just said into consideration, women who are unmarried, who've never had a child, actually earn more than unmarried men. This is from data compiled from the Census Bureau. This isn't just some random survey or statistics somewhere. It is from the actual Census Bureau. So it is a complete and utter fallacy that men make more than women. And I'm not even going to get into all the perks that women have for having a job. I mean, legal perks and perks from the business itself, just so it can meet government quotas. But that's an entirely different subject and video for another time. Anyhow, moving on here.
Oh, look, happy International Women's Day from my gynecologist.
Oh look, I just got my free tampons from the government. Makes sense considering about half the population bleeds freely 12 weeks of the year. Remember?
Alright, the first part of this was simply the typical blatant ignorance that we're used to here. The second part of this, she goes on to say that instead of saying Happy Women's Day, that women should receive a box from the government for women's products. So, because she is born a female, or am I even allowed to say that anymore? With this whole men trying to be women, women trying to be men nonsense. Anyhow, so what she's saying here is because she is born a woman, she by default is entitled to receive via the taxpayer dollar whatever is necessary to take care of her hygiene. So she believes in the ideal of I exist, therefore I deserve. I am a woman, I exist as a woman, and because of this, I deserve whatever is necessary commercially to take care of my hygiene at my behest. It's not my responsibility to provide it for myself. It's not my responsibility to take care of myself. It's the responsibility of the government to take care of me. And ultimately, it's not the government. And we'll get into that in a second here. So what I mean by that is it's not the government. It's ultimately the taxpayer. It's ultimately someone else who is working that is footing your bill. Not only is that immoral, it's reprehensible to force that upon somebody. That is the forced distribution of wealth, which in any time throughout history has very severely negative consequences. Ultimately, by the government providing these things, you are stealing from the pockets of someone else. You are stealing their labor. You're stealing from men who are out there working, providing for their families, just so you, because you are a woman, think that you are entitled to the fruits of their labor. Ma'am, I'm sorry, you are not. You are entitled to nothing but what you physically earn. You want equality here? Well, men receive nothing for free. Therefore, to achieve said equality, you should receive nothing for free. In fact, I would go as far as to say here, if you actually achieved the equality that men have, you would beg for it to go back to the way it was. You could never handle the stresses that men handle, ever.
Members of Congress are talking about how much they love their daughters again, because how else would men sympathize with women unless they have daughters? Oh, Congress reauthorized the Violence Against Women Act. It's almost as if they think violence against women is bad. How modern. Oh.
Now, I'm not even going to respond to this part here. There's nothing to respond to. It's just pure and utter ridiculousnthis. This is her simply trying to find something to make sense, trying to find something to further her argument, trying to further her ultimately fallacious point. I mean, it simply doesn't work here, so we're just going to skip past this one and move on.
Oh wow, another inspirational video about how hard it is to be a working mom. Wow, we finally joined most of the industrialized world offering universal paid leave to new parents.
Alright, this last one here. How hard exactly do you think it is to be a working mom? Tell me. Yeah, I don't think it's too difficult. I don't think it's any different. Well, you know what? Actually, it probably is different. You see, you don't have the added stresses that a man would have being a father, being the head of the household, being responsible for damn near everything that goes on within that house. Yeah, I'm sorry. There is simply no comparison between a working mother and a working father. None whatsoever. You see, the biggest difference is this. Men within their families, they carry the entire weight of the world on their shoulders. They carry the weight of the safety, of the protection, of the provision. They carry the weight of the whole family on their shoulders. They don't carry the weight of a small portion. They carry the weight of the entire family unit on their shoulders. That is why men need releases far more than women do. You see, contrary to popular belief, men are actually more emotionally mature than women. You see, when there's a problem, women have the ability to break down and expect someone to comfort them. Men don't. Men don't have the ability to do that. Instead, they hold it in, they bottle it up because they need to stay strong for their family. It's an innate requirement to stay strong for the family because as the head of the household, we have stresses that you could not possibly fathom. And quite frankly, the stresses that you will probably never have to worry about. Okay, as always, I do have to add a disclaimer here because there are women out there that are not single mothers by choice. I am speaking exclusively to the single mothers out there that are not single mothers by choice. You and you alone have the exclusive privilege of understanding the weight that is on the shoulders of men and of fathers in the world today. Even though you as a single mother would have far more options, far more governmental handouts than men ever do. In fact, we don't have any at all. If you are a single father, you have nothing. You do anything and everything, whatever is necessary, whatever you are capable of doing to take care of your child. Men don't have the ability to get government help, exclusive government benefits for being a single father like you single mothers do. But even with that being said, as I said earlier, you have the exclusive privilege of being able to understand far more than anyone else what a man, what a father begins to stress about within a family household, within a family unit. And something else here, something that you don't know because you don't see it on the surface. You also have the privilege of never knowing the stresses of that father, the stresses of that husband, because he bottles it up to be strong for you. You will never see the stresses that he goes through, which are incomparable to your minor inconveniences. And one other thing, the whole idea behind the universal paid leave, again, that's nothing more than one person sticking their hands in the pockets of another and stealing what doesn't belong to them, because none of that stuff is free. You know, so many of the younger generations, they don't think, they don't realize that the government doesn't give you something out of the goodness of its heart, assuming it has one. But the government doesn't just give you things, it doesn't grant you things. The only way for it to, quote unquote, give you a universal anything is if you take from someone and you give it to someone else, is if you steal the labor of someone and give it to someone else. There is nothing that makes you entitled to that. You are unbelievably delusional, narcissistic, self-absorbed, and entitled to a degree which I can't even express. If you think you are entitled to steal something from someone else to make your life easier, you know, there are consequences to actions that you take. If you choose to work, if you choose to have a job, if you choose to have a career, and if you have a child, then you need to figure out what you need to do to accommodate the needs for that child while you're working, or simply not work. Now, I know some of you are going to say, well, I can't not work and support my child. Well, you know what? Maybe you should have thought of that before you had the child. You see, women today, they have children and they expect the government to be its daddy. They expect the government to take care of that child. They know they can get handouts for it. As I said earlier, as a woman, you have exclusive benefits that men will never have. And it's wrong, especially if you are a single mother by choice. But again, that's a completely separate topic for another time. So anyhow, all I can say to this is, you are entitled to nothing. You are entitled to receive nothing free from anybody else. The only thing you, ma'am, are entitled to is what you work for, period. Nothing else. This is something that us men know without having to be told. Life as a woman for you isn't I exist, therefore I deserve. It is I exist, therefore I need to provide for myself. And that's where the disconnect is, because you are not entitled to steal from someone else for your own personal gain. Just because you bleed every month doesn't mean you are entitled to the hygiene products that were created by men for your convenience for free. If you want those products that were created and provided for by men for your convenience, then you need to purchase them. You are not entitled to the fruits of someone else's labor, period. Well, that about wraps things up here. Thank you once again for joining me for this episode of The Fallacious Truth. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. I've got quite a few videos out here. Maybe I'm still doing something wrong. So actually, if any of you have any suggestions or any tips that you can offer me as to how to get my stuff viewed, I'd greatly appreciate it. So once again, thank you much. Take care and have a good day.